On the westernmost ridge of Hong Kong Island stands a cluster of pristine white buildings. From here, you can witness the most spectacular sunsets, gazing across the entire western harbor. Sunlight bathes the white walls. Sea breezes drift through, and everything seems peaceful. But 50 years ago, this place had another name. The place where people vanished from the world. This is the Victoria Road Detention Centre. People called it the White House. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. The story of the White House begins in 1936. This complex was originally part of the Jubilee Battery, constructed to defend the Western Harbor against maritime threats. After World War II ended, it was converted into a club, canteen, in the barracks for the British Royal Engineers. But by the 1950s, the Cold War cast its shadow across the globe, and Hong Kong became a front line in the ideological conflict between East and West. This military compound was transformed into a specialized detention facility for the Hong Kong Police Force's political department. In 1961, it was officially designated as the Victoria Road Detention Centre. The political department, codename Special Branch. During British colonial rule, this was a secretive organization whose authority superseded all other law enforcement agencies. It reported directly to Britain's MI5, submitting daily intelligence briefings to both the governor and London. The governor had MI5 personnel stationed as political advisors. They were the true commanders of the special branch. Their mission: to monitor anyone deemed a threat to colonial rule. Leftist activists, union leaders, student protesters, even ordinary citizens who voiced radical opinions all could become targets. In 1967, Hong Kong erupted in large-scale riots. That year marked the White House's darkest chapter. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of individuals connected to the arrest were arrested and transported to this white compound. Perched on the mountaintop, the White House had no street number. It was nearly impossible to locate on any official map. Those brought inside would lose their names, reduced to numbers. Families couldn't visit. Lawyers couldn't intervene. The outside world had no way of knowing their whereabouts. A former special branch officer who worked at the White House revealed that the interrogation methods employed here were a form of meticulously designed psychological warfare. Each interrogation session lasted 4 to 5 hours. Then a fresh team would take over in a relay style, questioning that continued for days without pause. The special branch deliberately adjusted every detainee's watch. The purpose was to disorient their sense of time. When you lose track of time, when you're severed from all connection to the outside world, you begin to question whether you even exist. According to reports, suspects were held in isolation cells measuring just 4 feet by 4 feet. padded entirely with foam. Some cells, only a few square meters in size, would confine the person for months, even years. This was the ultimate test of human will, destruction, far deeper than physical coercion. Among those detained were high school principals, entertainers, and a young man who would later become Hong Kong's Secretary for Home Affairs, Chan Tak-sing, arrested during the 1967 riots. He was later transferred to Stanley Prison to serve his sentence. Years later, he documented that period in his memoirs. But regarding the specific conditions inside the White House, both he and other survivors rarely spoke in detail. Some experiences are too painful to put into words. Some walked out of the White House, but their spirits remained forever trapped in those dark cells. Others never walked out at all. In 1995, as Hong Kong's handover approached, the political department was officially disbanded. The White House was sealed shut, and all its files were shipped to Britain. Everything that happened here, the nameless prisoners, the untold tragedies, all of it was locked away in history's darkest corners. The White House sat vacant for nearly 20 years, becoming the most forbidden sight on Mount Davis. But some sounds, allegedly, never stopped. Mount Davis itself is already one of Hong Kong's most notorious haunted locations. During the Japanese occupation, this ridge served as an execution ground. In earlier centuries, it was wilderness roamed by pirates, and the White House is believed to harbor the highest concentration of restless spirits on this mountain. Urban explorers claim that when they infiltrated the White House after midnight, they heard the sound of chains dragging across floors. The sun moved slowly, as if someone were pulling heavy shackles, advancing step by step down the corridors. Though the surroundings were empty, faint screams would echo, along with the dull thuds of heavy objects striking walls. Visitors describe standing in the White House corridors and feeling an indescribable sense of oppression. Not fear exactly, but something deeper, a profound unease, as if countless eyes were watching from the darkness. Empty rooms that somehow felt crowded, as though too many invisible presences occupied the same space. Security guards have reported seeing shadows moving behind cell windows during patrols. But when they approach to investigate, there is nothing inside. Cell doors reportedly open and close on windless nights. Blurred figures appear at the ends of hallways, vanishing the moment you try to focus on them. Most unsettling of all is the sensation of being watched. According to those who have visited the White House, even in broad daylight, even when surrounded by others, standing in certain areas still makes you feel someone behind you. That gaze is cold, hostile, as if questioning, why are you still alive? Some say these are psychological projections, the shadows cast by the White House's history in people's minds. But others believe that the souls who suffered here, who lost their names and dignity, never truly left. They remain trapped in this white hell, reliving their most agonizing moments, waiting for someone to remember they existed. Today, the White House has been revitalized as the Hong Kong campus of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. In 2010, the structure was designated a Grade 3 historic building. In 2013, it was approved for adaptive reuse and reopened after restoration. Students now attend classes in former detention cells, discuss business cases in old interrogation rooms. Corridors have become exhibition spaces. Cells transformed into seminar rooms. But certain elements were deliberately preserved: rusted iron window bars, massive iron doors, the WD boundary stones on the walls. These aren't decorations. They're reminders. The White House's transformation represents an attempt at reconciliation, converting a dark past into a place of education, allowing a new generation to learn and grow here. But this reconciliation also provokes reflection. When we discuss business and finance within these walls, do we still remember the suffering they once witnessed? Will those nameless prisoners that erased history, those souls broken by relay interrogations, will they all be forgotten as time passes? History is never a simple fairy tale of good versus evil. In the most beautiful places, the darkest scars may hide beneath the surface. We come here not for sensationalism, not to exploit horror, but to bear witness, to witness a history that must not be forgotten, to witness those who lost their freedom, their names, their very existence. When you stand on Mount Davis, watching the sunset paint the White House golden, as sea winds blow and birds sing, everything seems so tranquil. But if you close your eyes and listen carefully, perhaps you'll hear the voices buried deep in history's depths. The voices of relay interrogations, the despair of losing all sense of time, the cries that could never reach the outside world. Let those who lost their names be remembered once more. This is the Mount Davis White House, a beautiful hail